Okay, recording started. So I'll go ahead and begin the panel now. So first I wanted all the panelists to introduce themselves. So please let me know your major, when your graduating class, your past involvements at UCI, and what you're involved in now.
Do you want me to
start? We can go in order from left to right and top to bottom.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Gonzalez. I graduated class of 2020 with a major in civil engineering, and I specialized in transportation. In terms of my involvements, I was involved in Engineering Student Council and Girls Engineering Change, but I had my larger roles as ASCE president my senior year, and I was also the Engineering Ambassadors Director. So that's me.
Hello, I'm Carolina. I graduated in 2021 with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and a minor in biomedical engineering. I was pretty involved in my time at UCI. I was actually fortunate enough to be an engineering peer academic advisor. And then I was involved in Engineering Student Council as different functions. And in my final year, I was the Vice President of Internal Affairs. So those were some of my involvements during UCI.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Jensen. I graduated in 2017 with a major in civil engineering and a minor in management. And when I was at UCI, I was on the UCI Spirit Squad and involved in Greek life, as well as Engineers Without Borders and the National Society of Leadership and Success.
Hi everyone, I'm Ani Sarkisian. I graduated in 2019 with a bachelor's in civil engineering. I was involved in a lot of engineering clubs. I started out with like Engineering Student Council and ASCE. I was pretty heavily involved in both of those and the design teams in ASCE. I also was in SWE, and I was in Engineering Ambassadors, and I was the assistant director, and Janelle was the director. Yeah, and I had a great time in all those activities.
Hey everyone, my name is Arun Jayanthi. You may not recognize me, I grew a beard. I graduated in December of 2020 from UC Irvine, Computer Science and Engineering. I was an engineering ambassadors, and I had the fortune to do a little bit of research with one of the professors, QV Dang, in the school. Numer, you might know him. You might have taken a class with him. Yeah. And I was actually I was introduced to the engineering ambassador program from another ambassador we'll have a chance to hear from in a moment, Fernando. But that's about it for me. We can't hear you, Jerry.
Jerry, we aren't able to hear you.
How about this?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Sorry about that. My name is Jerry. I was a BME pre-med, graduated in 2018, and I was involved in Engineering Student Council, Girls Engineering Change, as well as Engineering Ambassador. I did end up going into the medical route, so I'm currently a third year in medical school, medical student up in Oregon. Yeah, so I'll be happy to share my experience in that in a bit.
All right, guess I'm next. Hi, everyone. My name is Kenny Chow. I graduated UCI in 2012, environmental engineering as a bachelor's with a Earth System Science minor. Involved with Engineers Without Borders, UCI, and was also a peer academic advisor. So woot woot for anyone there. And also EPIC, if people know the fellowship on campus, EPIC. So, but yeah, I'm currently in the public sector right now as a more toward like the flood control and road design side. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Fernando Kowal. I graduated in 2019 with a bachelor's in electrical engineering. And while I was in UCI, I was an engineering ambassador for 2 different programs, for the School of Engineering and also for the UCI IBC Engineering Academy. And I was also involved in research where I used to work on a particle detector in Antarctica. So those are my involvements on campus.
Hi, everybody. My name is Taline Sarkisian. I just graduated from UC Irvine in 2021 and I studied computer engineering and electrical engineering. And while I was at UCI, I was involved in various clubs across UCI's engineering. I was part of HKN and Tau Beta Pi, the Engineering Honor Societies. And I was also part of Engineering Student Council and SWE. And I was the director for engineering ambassadors my senior year of college at UC Irvine and had a great experience with ambassadors, and I'm happy to be back here and answer any questions.
All right, thank you everyone for your introductions. Before I forget, and while we have everyone here with their cameras, I'd like to take a group picture to commemorate the event. So just give me 1 second. Let me stop sharing my screen. So all the panelists, go ahead and take a picture. Okay, 3, 2, 1, cheese. Okay, thank you so much. Let me save this. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen again. All right, is everyone able to see my screen? Okay, let's go ahead and go to the Q&A portion.
Okay, so our first question is, tell us about your career path so far. What led you to the work/program you're doing right now? And anyone can go ahead and go first. And again, not everyone has to respond if you don't want to, since we do have a lot of panelists.
Yeah, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and start, Aaron.
All right. So I'm currently working as a software engineer at General Motors in Chandler, Arizona. Chandler is a suburb in Phoenix. For those of you who don't know, I didn't know until I got the job offer. I have the fortune while I'm working at General Motors to work with like modern frameworks such as Angular, React, and modern technologies like data science wise. GM is making a huge push towards that. And I feel like at UC Irvine, the coursework was tailored towards Python, which is heavily used in data science. So that was an edge up I saw I had over like other new hires at my company. And that was probably why I was like I was able to go through the interview process a little more fluidly, I felt. So yeah, I can go on about that. I'll just leave it there for now.
Okay, I'll go, I guess. So when I was at UCI, I did a specialization in transportation, which wasn't the original plan. I actually thought I wanted to do structures. And so the summer after my freshman year, I did an internship at a structural firm and just realized that it didn't really interest me that much. And so I ended up doing an internship the following summer at another firm and in transportation, and ended up realizing that I was much more interested in that and changed what I decided to do my specialization in, and ended up working there after I graduated. And I would say one of the things that really helped me out was one, doing an internship to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And now I'm still in highway design, which is where I started so many years ago when I was, second year. But also learning in transportation, we use microstation primarily, and at UCI, they use AutoCAD. It's not a super hard transition, but it did give me a leg up to learn that on the job before I graduated.
Yeah, I guess I can go here. But yeah, I actually, when I came into UCI, I actually started off as a bio major, but then had switched pretty early on. But yeah, it was, yeah, to be honest, I didn't do as good a research about like some of the different engineering concentrations early on, but and kind of going through it and getting involved with research and also, you know, clubs like EWB, Engineers Without Borders, just kind of really emphasized, yeah, like the environmental aspects. And that was something I just dove headfirst into. Ended up doing an internship with LA County Sanitation Districts, and then went on to do a master's after that, and with that focus in wastewater. Definitely very something that I wasn't quite sure early on. Do I want to pursue something further in academia or industry? But just exploring those different avenues of research and internship, it led me to just, you know, go for industry in the end.
Oh, I think Kenny might have cut out.
I can go in the meantime. So I started out as a biomedical engineering major and actually switched to mechanical engineering at the end of my first year because I wanted something more hands-on, but I still wanted to do something pertaining to bio, something to help human health. And so I did my minor in BME. And I think that that intersection of mechanical engineering and BME was perfect for me. I'm very thankful that I chose that path because I got all of the mechanical focus in the courses, and my senior design and my projects were all mechanical based, but all of my applications and kind of my fun classes were with the biomedical applications. And I'm currently working at Alumni, which is a biotech company in San Diego. And I'm working on instruments, and it's been amazing to be able to see exactly that intersection, which is DNA sequencing, but the mechanical aspects of it, which is these big giant computers. So it's been really nice. And I think that what led me to that is just going through the coursework and seeing what I liked and what I didn't. And listening to my mentors, I had really great mentors throughout the entire process that first convinced me to switch out of BME and then convinced me to kind of stay involved. And also that led me to my internship. So my internship was a huge stepping stone into my position now. And I was an intern at Illumina and I'm still with them now. So I would say, listen to your mentors, pay attention in your courses, and then if you're able to, definitely try to get some industry experience.
I'll go next. So when I was actually younger, when I was a kid, I really had this dream that I wanted to do electrical engineering for physics, but I never really knew exactly how I was going to do that until I went to UCI. And in my very first quarter, I looked through all the different research topics that different electrical engineering professors were doing. And I found this one professor, Stuart Kleinfelder, who was actually designing RF radio frequency chips for a physics particle detector, which was located in Antarctica. And a simple email showing my interest got me the position. And the reason why I am working today with radio frequency at Qualcomm was mostly because of this experience that I had through research. I did research for around 2.5 years, and I learned a lot of things in this research that regular undergraduate students don't really get exposed by just taking the courses. And this advantage actually allowed me to get an internship at Skyworks Solutions, where I used to test cell phone chips. And my internship at that time gave me a glimpse of like what exactly I would be doing as an RF validation engineer. But unfortunately, like at that moment, I couldn't really get hired by the company, so I had to work with a different industry where I was working for Siemens Mobility testing trains. So I tested trains for around a year and a half, and I was really unhappy with my job. So I decided to study again, watch a lot of different YouTube videos, and go back to try to get an RF validation and characterization position. And luckily, I landed this position at Qualcomm here in San Diego, and that's what I do up to today for the past 2 years now.
Also, Kenny, if you wanted to return to your thoughts since you were cut off a little bit at the end.
Oh yeah, I guess just to kind of wrap up that end, just that, my career path was a little circuitous, like going from basically now I'm in a different area than when I initially started in. But I think the important thing was just, being open, talking to people, and just open to the possibilities. So I didn't know I would enjoy the kind of the water resource road and road side of civil engineering. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, but yeah, just be open to the different possibilities, basically.
Did anyone else want to answer this question? If not, I can move on to the next question. All right, I think I'll go ahead and move on to the next question then. So why did you choose a career in engineering in your particular field of engineering? And what do you enjoy most about the path that you're pursuing?
I can go first. This is Ani. I guess like my background is in high school. I really liked chemistry, and then I took environmental science, and I was like, no, this is way better. And then I was like, well, you might need a PhD if you want to do sciences, and I was like, engineering it is. So I picked civil with the intention of doing more environmental related stuff. But I ended up really liking the structural aspect of civil as well as like the water and environmental, because it kind of aligned with my interests in environmental science and helping the environment and community. And what I like most about what I'm doing, so I work in water treatment for the city of LA, and I like that, like what I'm doing every day plans projects to make sure a lot of people in my community have like clean drinking water. So I like the idea of what I'm doing is like directly positively impacting my community, which I'm sure a lot of people on this panel is like pretty similar, but that's kind of that's my story.
I could go next. So like Ani, I'm a civil engineering major, like I said. And for me, when I first started, I thought I wanted to do water. I always thought water was really cool. And I actually did an academy outside of school called WTS Transportation Academy. And I did it just because I was like, oh, it'll be a fun experience. It's during the summer. I'll get to go on a tour, that kind of thing. And when I went on and I saw like what exactly transportation entailed, I fell in love with it. I really fell in love with the idea of getting people home safely, getting people home to their families a little quicker. And that's kind of why I went to the transportation route. Something I enjoy most about the path that I'm pursuing is, even though it's transportation, I get to touch everything on the project with roadway, because you can't just build a road and then completely disregard how water is going to drain on that road. You have to figure out where the water is going, and trying to figure out how to make your roadway design so that drainage has less issues, or trying to find out how to make the roadway easier to build. I currently work on our stage construction team. So when you're thinking of a road, you can't just shut down the entire freeway to build it. even though that would be great and probably more efficient. The public isn't going to like that. People need to get home, people need to get to work. So figuring out how to split up the design and what's the best order to do it in is really interesting to me. And just figuring out those kinds of puzzles is what keeps me passionate about what I've been doing. Yeah.
I can go. I think computer science and engineering for me was a perfect blend between engineering and computer science. I was lucky enough to do my first real computer science courses at UC Irvine. So that's really where I was experienced to it. But growing up, I always had this affinity for, math, physics, calculus, even chemistry to an extent, definitely not bio. But I knew I liked engineering. I knew I liked figuring things out with my hands. So when I came to UCI and I realized they had this option of CSE, I was like, that seems pretty interesting. So I went for it, and I was able to do exactly what I thought it would be like. For example, my senior design project was a magic mirror. And you guys may have seen something like this on the internet. It's gained a lot of popularity. I don't want to say I'm a trendsetter, but I've seen more of it after my project. And it's just a two-way glass with an LCD behind it. It's controlled by a Raspberry Pi. It's a very simple interface, but it's easily extensible. You can add widgets, and it's connected to the internet. And right there, you have a strong platform to keep developing on. And that's a blend of something hardware, like I had to put this mirror together, and then also the software, which is the Raspberry Pi. So anytime I blend those two things, I think it's always where I've been trying to come from.
Yeah, and I can share my experience a little bit. Out of all the panelists, like my current work is probably at the most far removed from engineering. And the reason why I kind of chose BME pre-med, when I was choosing like major at the end of high school was, I just really couldn't just decide, to be honest. I like kind of healthcare, medicine, but also really like growing up really like building things and really like math and physics in high school. So this was kind of like initially like my way of kind of delaying my decision of, having to like decide a career. And then inevitably I had to like choose that, during my kind of career at UCI. And honestly, I really loved both. And ultimately, I did kind of choose kind of medicine, but I think like where I am right now, I really enjoy like, even though I deal more with like medicine and healthcare, but whenever like I talk to people about medical devices, I kind of have that sort of experience and background, and that still get me excited. And honestly, I think there's like a pretty good balance and kind of intersection in the future for me. Like if I were to like kind of want to like incorporate some sort of engineering aspect into my practice or things like that, I still have that avenue. And because you see like, different doctors will get interested in different medical devices. And, if people are interested in being a surgeon, like orthopedic surgeon, they can like kind of play with different orthopedic devices. So there's definitely like a possibility in how you want to like build your practice around with incorporation engineering. And I've just recently kind of explored around the field of sleep medicine, where a lot of patients are on CPAP machines. And of course, it's not like 100% perfect. So that kind of also like sparked the interest in me, like wanting to kind of have a blend of practicing medicine and, kind of dipping my toes in the medical kind of engineering field. And so I feel like you can also definitely have like the best of both worlds. And then kind of one like kind of interesting kind of experience that I had in this past year that I thought like was pretty enjoyable was, like in the hospital, there's like people like on like different pulse ox checking like their oxygen. And then in one of the BME classes, I think like in second year, you actually like program that. Like I don't remember the code anymore, but it's just like really cool to learn the background, like how that everything was built, and see that kind of be applied in the real world, in like a patient care setting. So even though like right now I'm a little bit far removed from engineering, but I think, you know, I'm still really glad that I majored in engineering back in UCI.
Anyone else for this question before we move on? All right, go ahead and move on then.
Okay, our next question is, can you tell us more about the work that you're doing now? What is a typical day like?
Okay, I'll start us off. So I am a senior consultant at WSP. So I'm a highway engineer, and I think that it's one of the more social engineering routes you can take. You have to spend a lot of time coordinating with not only people on your team, but different consultants that you're working with. You have your hands in everything, kind of like what Janelle was saying earlier. You're working with people of every discipline, like roadway is kind of where all the roads meet together. So you have to work with geotech, you have to work with environmental, everything just comes together to roadway, which is something that I really love. But a typical day is mostly, you know, you'll spend a few hours in MicroStation putting something together, but it's not just that you're spending time designing something. You also have to spend time preparing for meetings to present that design. You have to spend time coordinating with people. You're meeting with people on your team, figuring out what, you know, putting your brains together, figuring out what the best design would be, and then planning for those meetings when you're meeting with like the client or meeting with Caltrans, and figuring out what you're going to say and how you're going to present. I think that's something that I didn't realize when I was going through college. Like I was like, oh, engineering, like you just kind of sit down at a desk and like do your work all day. But it's a little bit more social than that, I would like to say, which I think is good. It makes it's a different type of challenge.
I can go next. Sorry, the sun is like creeping up on me a little bit, but I'm a software engineer at JPL in Pasadena right now, and I started like a year ago, like as soon as I graduated from UC Irvine. So I started working there during the pandemic, actually. So a typical day for me was kind of weird because I was just kind of on my own with just like my computer, and I was just at home, and it was really hard to like reach out to others because I wasn't sure, you know, who to reach out to at first. But now that it's been a year and we've kind of started going in person more, it's been a lot better. And also just kind of like Natalie was saying, it is very, very social. And, you know, even for software engineering, which you would expect to kind of be like in your own little bubble, just coding all day. But at the end of the day, what engineering is working as a team to deliver a product, whatever it may be. So that communication and like reaching out is just like to others and clarifying tasks and assignments, all that is part of engineering, and it's all kind of like a big part of like a typical day at work. So for me, I'm always reaching out to others. Anytime I need clarifications on anything I'm working on or whoever I'm delivering my product to, I have to make sure it follows their specifications and meets the requirements and everything. So, yeah, that's just, a lot of like contacting others, engineers and non-engineers, and a lot of just working together to get to a product.
Similar to Talene, I actually started over the pandemic as well. So it was a lot of, wake up, roll over to the other side of bed, get your computer out and figure out how to onboard onto this team and how to become a software engineer. At school, you know, you're really only taught like the theory, and now you have to go apply it. So that was a lot of fun, and definitely going into the office does help. So my day to day is quite interesting. I work on two separate teams. Both of them deal with a huge amount of data, and I'm fortunate because currently General Motors, I'm a software engineer for General Motors. They're financially supporting me through my master's. I'm getting my master's in data science. So I think they are recognizing the immense potential of their data. You know, General Motors is a 100-year-old company. Everyone here knows their name. So they've had decades of data just sitting there, untapped potential. And so they're looking for bright young people to come in and, you know, push themselves and try to take advantage of this. So I'm juggling two different teams and a master's program, and I couldn't be happier because everything I'm doing is literally on the cutting edge of the field. We're building the road as we're walking on it. And yeah, it's a very exciting workplace. Everyone's really passionate. Great time, great industry to be in.
Yeah.
So I think, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Fernando. I'll go for it.
Okay. So,
Yeah, go for it.
So I think that similarly to Arun and Talene, I was also hired by Qualcomm in the middle of the pandemic. But a difference was that I was actually required to be on site every day because as a characterization engineer, I need to, like my job is to characterize a very specific chip on the cell phone, which is the very last chip of the signal chain. So it's the chip that either transmits the signal or receives the signal. And it's the closest job that someone can get to designing without being a designer, because I need to really understand all the different parameters, understand the design, and in the lab try to optimize all the settings so then we meet all the customer specifications. But a typical day for me is going into the office, looking through my emails, seeing what types of tests the higher management are requiring for that particular week, and going to the lab, doing a lot of different measurements, going back to the office, maybe brainstorming a little bit. So overall, as I said, it's a job where I don't really do the chip layout. I don't spend like a huge amount of time sitting in front of one computer and doing a lot of tasks. But at the same time, I really need to understand the design. And currently, I just applied for a master's degree as well at UCLA. So hopefully I can get in. But similarly to Arun, I feel that the undergrad that I had in UCI really prepared me for the job today, but getting that master's degree will actually make a difference because I still lack a little bit of the theoretical knowledge that everyone else has at Qualcomm. But one cool thing is that I work with 5G. So it's like, it's really kind of pushing the limit of communication, and Qualcomm it's a great company to be at least at this moment in time.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to echo some of the things that I think Ani, Janelle, and Natalie all mentioned. So I'm like I said, I'm on the public sector side. I'm actually work for LA County. So majority of my career had been more on the I quickly transitioned early on to like more of the project management side, like master plan development, a lot of stakeholder engagement. It's like talking directly with communities. I guess one of the things that struck me was just the amount of not just, I mean, of course, like the collaboration, all the different kinds of roles, but also just the different kinds of personalities that come with that, including your own team. I guess the idea of managing up became a very important lesson, because a lot of times it's if your bosses are the ones that are the ones representing, you have to be sure that they have all the right information. And sometimes the baton gets passed to you, and being able to just just have that direct, kind of honest like feedback just as an engineer that was like one of the, I think, key things for me, just working with those different personalities. And although I'm not in much of a PM role now, more on like closer to the back to the design side, the PM skills apply wherever you go. So just having eagle eye for issues, still matching schedules is still definitely an important thing. So a lot of my job on the day-to-day still deals with that. Still like managing more design now, but also still keeping on the schedule. So yeah, it definitely flexes a lot of different muscles, both hard and soft skills.
I think we'll move on to the next question now. Do you think that your experiences at UCI prepared you well for your career? And what opportunities and experiences at UCI were the most valuable to you?
I can start us off. I would say yes to the first question because I have actually heard from people on some of my teams ask me like, hey, where did you go to school? I should send my kids there, which is bizarre. But I think that as a lot of people mentioned, you have a lot of soft skills and a lot of technical skills that are very essential. I would say UCI did a good job of giving me the technical skills that I need, but also my involvement gave me the soft skills that are very much relevant to the workplace. Because you could be a great designer, but if you don't know how to present your design or communicate, your requirements, things like that to other people, your design is not going to be used. So I very much echo just the collaboration that everyone has mentioned. I work on the on-market space and we're constantly driving out products. And as some of the people here have mentioned, we're on the cutting edge of healthcare. So with that, there are a lot of risks because, you have a lot of technical insight, but also you're on cutting edge. A lot of the things that you're being worked on haven't been done before. But with that, you have to kind of rely on your technical foundations that you get in your college career to say, okay, well, like this is the foundation that we have to go with. This is what we can test to. This is what we can, have confidence in, and then be able to deliver a good product for our customers. So I think, yes, UCI very much prepared me for that. And I will stress that the soft skills are everything. And I really would not be in the position that I'm at right now without those soft skills. And so to the second question, what opportunities / experiences at UCI were the most valuable to you? I would say probably those extracurriculars, being in mentorship groups, being in even just conversations with professors, or if you're in a senior design project, just like getting to know your team and getting to know the different skills that people have is very valuable because you never know, you might end up working with one of your classmates in the future. And, it's funny how it works, but it's true. I have people that are also UCI alumni that I work with, and all are coming from different backgrounds, but all are at the same company. So leverage your network. Anyone can be that network, whether it be, the person you sit next to or the person you hear a lecture from, or even a guest speaker. So leverage your network and don't lose that. Just try to keep in contact with everyone and learn as much as you can from everyone.
Honestly, my answer is going to be like almost a duplicate to that. I think that what I really liked about UCI is that everyone is like super nice. Like just when I toured it, when I went to like SPOP, things like that, I like felt very welcome on the campus, and it was really easy to deal with like our like engineering department. So that was nice in case I did want to change majors. I was thinking of mechanical at some point. So just like the amount of flexibility and like the range of classes, like especially in civil, I feel like I learned like everything I wanted to, even though I'm doing water. I took a lot of structural classes too, which I really enjoyed, and it's good information for me now. So I think the range of classes was really good at UCI and definitely helped prepare me. Like especially for civils, the EIT is pretty important. And like when I took my EIT, I was flipping through like my soil mechanics notes, or maybe that was for the PE, but like I'm flipping through notes from all my classes to study for these tests to get these licenses that are really important. And then same thing for the soft skills. When I went to, I think it was SPOP, like that's orientation, and then someone from ESC had presented and they about ESC, and they were super good at talking, and I was like, I'm joining that club. They're so good at talking. And I was like pretty scared of doing the public speaking stuff at that point. So it may sound cliche or whatever, but I really do encourage you to join the clubs. And if you can do the leadership positions, it teaches you how to work in a team. Even just the structure of clubs, I think, has really reflected to my workplace. Like there's like an e-board and a cabinet and general members. Like my workplace is pretty much run like that. It's like managers and supervisors and staff. So just like practicing working in teams is really good, whether that's like in your group project or in joining the clubs, but you really do learn how to communicate in those extracurriculars that are available. So whether it's like discipline specific or like the more general ones, like if it's like SWE or ESC, you get to meet people in different majors, so that's nice. And then when you do like the more specific ones like ASCE, you can meet people who are already in the industry and like network with them, things like that. And like for me personally, and I know Janelle is also involved too, we're still involved in ASCE after graduating college. So I'm involved in the LA chapter. So that's expanded my network even more, which is really great. And I wouldn't have really thought of it unless I was already, you know, maybe doing ASCE when I was in UCI. So I'm not sure who the audience is on this call, if you're a freshman or sophomore or any level, just like join a club. It's not too late, especially you're in person now. So that's like really nice. Or I guess it's almost end of the year, but just keep that in mind. Like learn as much as you can in your classes and join the clubs. Oh wait, I'll say one more thing, so really quick. There was one class that we did for civil that was a lot of Excel. And at the time I was like, oh, I'll never need this again. And then I didn't need it again. I use Excel every single day. So don't take things for granted. Like really learn, you may need it more than you think in the future.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo Ani. I think there's like an ongoing joke in the engineering community where like an introverted engineer looks at their shoes when they're talking to you, and an extroverted engineer looks at the other person's shoes when they're talking. And so there's just this ongoing thing of like engineers can't communicate. And that's like so far from the truth, because every day you have to communicate, whether it's with your team, whether it's with a sub-consultant, the community. Like you have to understand how to express yourself, talk, explain your ideas, because like the other panelists said, you could have the greatest research, the greatest design in the world, but if you can't explain it to not only engineers, but to the public, it's not going to be adopted. So something that UCI really prepared me well for is just speaking and organizing in teams. A lot of your senior projects, or a lot of the projects in engineering, they force you to do teams. So I would just really encourage you to take a leadership role, even if it's on just your intro to engineering course. Just doing small leadership skills. Maybe you're not great at it the first time, but it'll get you better each and every time. And when you're having group presentations, try to get, as much speaking time as you can. Don't try to hide behind your peers, because eventually, I think you'll see when you get into the workforce is the higher you go in whatever field it is, the less you're doing actual design and the more it's dependent on your management skills. So it is really dependent on you to work on your communication and your soft skills. But just so that you're not freaked out, UCI did prepare me in terms of general basis for knowledge and courses. Like Ani said, I was able to take my FE after my third year, just because I had learned all of that information in my classes. But don't freak out when you get into the workforce and think, oh my gosh, I'm a fraud, I don't know anything. The companies know that you're not going to know everything going into work. And your undergraduate experience is really teaching you just how to learn. how to find resources, how to research, how to get to solving a problem, but work will train you because ultimately they're going to mold you into whatever version of the company that they want you to be. So don't freak out, especially the seniors. I know everyone goes through it, but don't freak out and think, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. I should have paid more attention in this class. Like they'll make sure to train you at work, but just focus on how you learn and how you get to answers. And one of the most valuable experiences at UCI, I would say, would probably be like Ani, just my experience with the extracurriculars in ASCE. That's really where I established my network. I got my internship because I was always going to ASCE events. They asked me at one of the events, they're like, oh, I've seen you a couple of times, like you should come interview for us. I interviewed for an internship and I never left. I went straight into that company full time. So you'll never know when a door will open for you. But also remember never to burn bridges because the amount of times you'll see the same people is crazy. I just went to a wedding and I knew half of the wedding because in some form they're civil engineering industries. So it's kind of crazy how everyone is connected. You'll go to the ARC and play basketball and that's somebody's project manager or supervisor that's an alumni from UCI. So it's really crazy. Just be nice to everybody. That's all I could stress. There's going to be a lot of different characters, but as long as you know how to work with people, that's what's most important. So yeah, UCI was great. Definitely hang in there. I know it gets tough, but you'll do great.
I want to call attention to something very interesting. And I've known all of these alumni from different parts, either when I was an undergrad or when they had just joined the program. And it's remarkable that the most common feedback that I'm hearing is the communication. I can't agree more. It's so real in the workplace, like that it really comes down to sharing your ideas. And I hate to be a parrot, but it's true. My workplace allowed me to do a proof of concept. And it was only because I was able to explain to them, hey, you have all this data, like, let me, take 3 weeks and see if I could visualize it for you in a way you've never seen before. And I was able to explain to them and like put it in terms for my IT director to understand. And I got like funding, or I got the resources, and I was able to run ahead with that. So it's all communication.
All right, I think I'm gonna move on to the next question now.
All right, our next question is, what advice do you have for students who are interested in your particular field of engineering?
I'll go. I think something that at least I had the misconception that when I was in college, I needed to do everything. And I felt like the whole 4 years, I was just like pushing and pushing myself. I need to get these grades. I need to do these extracurriculars. I need to be everywhere and do everything to build this resume. And I don't know that it was worth it. When I look back on it, I think back to college, I'm like, you're only in college one time. And that, your parents aren't going to tell you this, but like have fun, go to the beach. You're right by Newport Beach. Like do all the things. There's so many opportunities that UCI has. But at the end of the day, you're getting an engineering degree, so you're going to get a job. So don't worry about it too much. Like you're all here right now. So it proves that obviously you're investing in your future and you want to spend time learning about it. And, all these things are worthwhile, but at the end of the day, be a human being. You have your whole life to work. So that might be, kind of rare advice that you don't get from everybody, but I think I look back and wish that I spent more nights just hanging out with friends than just like killing myself to like build this resume that I feel like I would have gotten the job anyways.
I know for myself, early on, I wish I had like pursued like more intently getting like getting involved with like internships and other things early on. But when I finally did try to, like later on in my UCI career, it always felt like it was a competition sometimes, because there were just so many of us looking for opportunities to gain experience. But the thing about it is, though, even if you don't get like maybe like a ton of engineering related internships, or maybe you just have like other experience working retail or or restaurant or something, it's all valuable experience. That's one of the things. You learn people skills no matter where you go and those kind of things. And I think my main piece of advice is, wherever you are, just find the opportunities in it, make the most of it, and just learn from it. And those are things that will carry over into the next interview, into the next job or project. You just never know. So don't toss away where you're at right now. Just make the most of it, and you'll never know, what cool things will come out of it.
I can go next. I think so. I guess advice for students who are interested in my field. So my field of engineering, I studied electrical engineering and computer engineering at UCI, and now I'm a software engineer. And I think like the advice I would give is, I guess, kind of like how Natalie and Kenny are talking about, like just enjoying college. I would say like I would recommend to like focus on like the projects and everything that you're learning in class. Like really try to understand what you're learning, because once you get to a workplace, that's kind of like all the knowledge you're going to carry with you. So, when I was in school, we would do all sorts of projects and everything, and it seemed challenging. But now that's kind of like my day-to-day work is like coming up with solutions and using all that knowledge that I gained from school. So I think some advice I would give is just like really take your time and like enjoy and understand what you're learning in the classes that you're taking. And UCI has so many different options and such a breadth of knowledge that, there's so many different courses that you can take to kind of expand and bend your major around a little bit. So like I started off with computer engineering, and then I realized I really liked my signal processing courses. So I just kept taking more and more, and that's why I added on that like second major. And UCI's advisors really helped me with that. The engineering advisors helped me kind of build my schedule and my plan, and helped me get to that point. So, my advice would be just to kind of like reach out to advisors and mentors, and even like professors are very helpful. I, always try to take the time during office hours or whenever to just talk to professors about their research, and they would also always give advice. I would ask, like, how does this apply in a workplace, for example, like whatever we're learning in class, and they would kind of talk more about that as well. So, use your resources and reach out and just try to make the most of like the classes that you're taking at UCI, because that's what you're going to carry with you in the workplace as well.
I'll add it says your particular field of engineering, but I feel like it'll apply to everybody. Recently, I've noticed, or I've come to the realization, don't box yourself into the future that you think you want, because in one experience in the future could change everything. So for example, I went into UCI thinking I wanted to do water. I went to one transportation academy, completely changed the transportation. And that can happen at any point in your career. So it's really important to be open to different experiences. So when I started as a transportation design engineer, I thought I would just be doing roadway geometry. And my first task as a full-time was designing the drainage system for the Port of LA. I had never done it before. I was testing a new software, so I had to research everything. But doing that task really helped me understand that there was aspects of roadway that were bigger than just geometry. So knowing drainage, knowing stage construction, understanding the different disciplines ultimately helps me when I'm looking at the design as a whole. It also helps me collaborate more with my team, just because if I'm changing something in stage construction and let's say I have to take out an existing inlet, I know that I have to tell the drainage team right away because that's going to change their design. So just be open to different opportunities because you never know what you'll end up liking, just because all of the fields are so broad. And I have an older sibling that's also in the same major, and she's switched from transportation to land development to public works. And it's never too late in your career to switch. Every experience that you have is valuable. So if you ever come to a point where you're like, okay, this isn't exactly what I wanted to do, let me switch, but that's going to be such a waste of time. I just spent all of this time in transportation, or I spent all this time in water. Like, nothing is a waste of time. You'll be able to take all those experiences with you into whatever path you choose after that. So don't get so stressed about the original plan. Be okay with deviating from it because it'll actually lead you to something that you might like. So just keep that in mind throughout your career because it's really easy to stress yourself out and compare your path to other people. But as long as you're enjoying what you're doing and you're learning every day, that's what's important. So that's my biggest advice that I could give to you all.
So I also wanted to give time, the last 30 minutes in the end for if any audience members or students wanted to ask open Q&A questions. So the last question I'll leave us with while students are asking their questions is, what advice do you have for students seeking their first jobs post-graduation and starting out their careers? And audience members, if you have any questions for now, you can type it in the chat, and then later on, I'll also give you an opportunity to unmute your mics as well if you'd like.
Apply, apply, apply. Don't stop applying. It's a religion. If you stop for one day, it turns into 2 days. It's a numbers game. I'm sure everyone here can say the same thing. It's you're qualified. Step one, understand that you're qualified. Step two, it's a numbers game, and then just stick with it.
One thing I wanted to add is don't lie on your resume. Because depending on the type of job that you get, they will go line by line on your resume. At least this was my interview, and they would ask me exactly all the different projects that I took. What did I really do? Draw the circuit on the board. So don't lie on your resumes. And in fact, you can actually look up online what the job that you're applying to and see if some of the things that they would ask you, it's outside of your scope, so you can be better prepared for the interviews.
And just like in general, if you're still in the beginnings of college, like don't be afraid to go to career fairs as early as possible. You can go fall semester or fall quarter of your freshman year, and then next time you go, you'll have a little bit more experience, you'll have your classes, and they'll recognize you. So don't be afraid to talk to people, and don't undersell yourself. Everyone is doing different things that and have different personalities, and that makes up like who you are. So I think like one thing is like try to find what's special about you when you're in an interview, for example. So like if you're, I don't know, like doing the social media for your club, that's something that like no one else is doing for your club. So that's something you can really highlight, that you're good at being concise and graphically presenting, or putting things into pictures, things like that. So you can think about like your experiences and like what makes you unique, and really hitting on what makes you the best candidate for the position. So like remember that when you're going into it and like preparing for the interviews too. Like don't forget all the things you've done and what makes you you. And yeah, I think applying, and if you can do any internships before. That way you have some experience, and also you can see like, do I want to do this in the future? That also helps. And senior design, that's like a huge project. That's like for us, it was very close to what real work is like. So anytime you can like bring that up and talk about what your role was, you know, that's also really applicable. But apply broadly, go to career fairs and network as much as you can.
If you keep your connections with these recruiters, if you're a freshman, you make a connection, you keep that connection by emailing them, you're making their job easier, because their job is to find qualified candidates. So don't be shy to stay connected to these recruiters.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I'm still in touch with recruiters that I met in my second year of college, and we still communicate on a pretty regular basis. So I would definitely recommend that. I have 3 kind of similar pieces of advice. The first one, definitely know your resume. I don't know how many interviews you'll have to go through in your quest to find a job, but I went through 9 for one position, and every single one made sure that I knew my resume in and out completely. So know your resume and have your resume reviewed by as many people as you can. Your mentors, your professors, your friends, your mom, anyone. Make sure that there's no mistakes in that. The second one is, if you have time, take other classes. For me, I did a major and I did a minor, but I was like, well, I still have time, but like might as well just take some classes. And I know it seems bizarre because you've been grinding for 4 years and you just want to get it out and done and you're just tired. But I think in my last couple of quarters at UCI, I was able to take courses like a robots class and advanced manufacturing and just things that I would have never been able to take had I not been in a university and had I not just tried out new things. So if you have the opportunity to take one fun class just to kind of test out the waters, I would highly recommend. I learned really unique things, and actually in my advanced manufacturing class, I learned about lithography, which is what technology we use now. So very interesting. And then the third one is to just be patient and to give yourself grace through the interview process and through the application process. I know that for me, when I graduated, I kind of felt this pressure to have a job right away, to have things lined up, and to know what my next step was. I was always a planner, so I always knew kind of what laid ahead for me. And getting out of university, I had no plan. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to apply, we'll see what happens. I knew I wanted to go into industry, so at least I knew that, but I didn't really fully know, what company. So the application season for me was kind of a 3-month period. And in that time, I took time to just kind of relax, sleep, hang out with friends, get to know the companies I was applying to, because it is important to actually research and actually know kind of what you're thinking of doing. And I think that giving yourself patience during that period is really important, because you're not on this ticking time clock. Like everyone has their own pace, everyone is on their own path, and the job will come. You're an engineer, you're qualified, the job will come.
Sure. I'll add on one last quick thing, and then we have to jump to the next part, but just 2 pieces of advice. The worst thing you can do for your career is to just sit at your desk and do your work. Get up and talk to people, get to know people around your office, get involved if you can. That's one of the things. Like, otherwise you could be doing great work, but you don't have the exposure. It's a combination of doing good work, but also having good exposure to other people as well. So make sure you do that. And yeah, have a life outside of work too. Work is not everything. Yeah, you gotta have a nice balanced life. You gotta do the things that you enjoy too. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you everyone for your advices. We have a couple of questions in chat, and I welcome any of the audience members to keep asking questions in the chat. So one of them is from Preston. He asks, what are some variables, location, opportunity for growth, salary, etc. did you consider when it came to choosing jobs if you had multiple offers? A few years down the road, do you think those variables that you made on your decision made sense?
I could go with this since I graduated in 2020, which was obviously the very beginning of the pandemic, very questionable time in terms of the job market. Something I will definitely say to pay attention to now is depending on your comfort level with the different health and safety requirements at different companies, I would look into that. For example, we barely came back to the office. We had a very slow introduction back to in person. And for me, I was very comfortable with that. I was able to work from home and work with my team virtually. So if that's something that's important to you, I would definitely look into that when you're looking for a company. In terms of your salary, don't sell yourself short and definitely do your research. Don't be afraid to ask your peers what kind of offers they're looking at in terms of salary, just so that you're making sure you're not accepting less than you should. Make sure you're doing your research on different platforms like LinkedIn or Glassdoor to kind of get a feel for what you should be making. In terms of location, as you can see, gas prices are pretty high right now. So depending on if you're willing to commute, some people it's just mentally draining to drive that long. So location is definitely important in some aspects, just for your own mental health if you don't want to be driving and you're working long hours. But the most important thing I think when it comes to choosing a job is don't accept an offer just because they gave you one. Looking for a job is a lot like looking for a home. Like you want to make sure that it feels right. If you're in the interview and you're not getting a good vibe from the recruiters or the interview panel, don't be afraid to trust your gut because if you don't feel comfortable and you're not gelling with the team, you don't want to have that kind of feeling at your workplace every day. So just make sure you're looking for somewhere that's comfortable. For me, something that was really important to me was professional development and being able to be involved outside of work. And my work has definitely supported that. So looking for companies that are okay and even, reimburse you for different professional development is important. Another aspect that might be important to you is diversity and inclusion. If that's really big for you, look for companies that lean into that and have different groups to support you throughout your career. And if I could think of one more, I know Arun and Fernando have mentioned having their work cover their education in terms of getting a graduate degree or anything like that. Look, if that's something that you want in your career, make sure you're looking for companies that will support that, especially if you're going to need financial help in the future. Look for companies that are flexible. And all these variables are important. So don't just take a job to take it. Especially right now, everybody's looking for people. So I'm sure you'll be able to find something that you actually like. So don't settle for less just because you feel behind or you're getting nervous that you're not going to find something. Just really pick something that you're comfortable with.
Really quick, I have a question that kind of bounces off of what Janelle just said to Fernando and Arun, like the whole idea of like asking your employer to help reimburse for a graduate program. How does the conversation or how do you go about like asking for something of that nature, I guess?
So I can go first. General Motors actually has something called a salaried tuition assistance program, and it's available to every single employee from the day that they start. And all you have to do is open that communication, talk to your manager and be like, I know I just started, but I always wanted to do a master's, or, I just did CSE and I know data science is this huge, big unknown. And I know you guys would like to, it's really not as, maybe it's the relationship I have with my boss, but it's not as formal as you would think. It's honestly, they recognize you as someone who just graduated, but if you have the passion for it, it'll bleed through. And it also has to come down to your work supporting it. So that was a big factor, that there was an existing program that I just had to go tap.
So similarly, Qualcomm also has a tuition reimbursement program, and you just need to apply for it, but it needs to be in certain schools that are approved by Qualcomm. Like, for example, UCSD is one, UCLA is another, but let's say UC Berkeley is not. So I actually had to pick within some of the schools that I wanted to attend. But the conversation with my manager was pretty straightforward, mostly because everyone who does my particular role at Qualcomm already comes with a master's degree. The reason why I got the job was because of my experience through my internship and through my research position, but they don't hire people for my particular role without a master's degree. So it was very easy for me. Like, I just got selected on the visa lottery to be able to stay in the US. So I told my manager, like, my next step is the master's degree. Like, you knew it was coming, and she immediately said, like, I definitely knew it. So it's depending on the role that you do and depending on the company that you go to, they will support you 100%. But especially if you don't have a master's degree yet and you come into the company, you show your passion for what you do, and you show that you can actually work 35 to 40 hours a week and still handle one to two courses per quarter, they will support you. There's one caveat that comes with this, is that if you, at least for Qualcomm, after I graduate, I still need to work for them for 2 extra years in order for me to not pay them back. So if my master's is part-time, might take 2 to 3 years. So that would be another 4 to 5 years staying with the company. Who knows if I'm going to be there after 4 or 5 years, but it's something to consider as well.
So I actually want to bring that up. Something interesting is that General Motors does not require any form of repayment. If I finish the program and the next day I hand in my 2 weeks, I'm good. And that comes down to the job. So definitely do your research. This is something that was explained to me during an interview process. So these are all of those hidden factors. So if salary isn't exactly where you like it, look at the other benefits a job may be providing, such as career growth, whatever. But also know your worth. Sometimes there isn't an excuse for why the salary is low, and you should, if they've given you an offer and you ask for more money and they reject the offer, or they rescind the offer, that's not a company you want to work for. Like, that's just not good etiquette. That's not professional. So don't be shy about asking for more money.
All right. Next, there was actually a question for Jerry about BME Pre-Med in the chat. So how did you balance challenging engineering courses and all the extracurriculars required for medical school while also getting good grades?
Yeah, thanks for the question, because it is, to be 100% honest, it is pretty difficult. There's a lot of different requirements, recommended things to do extracurricular wise for medical school, and then all your pre-med student, like your pre-med counterparts, are doing those. So you kind of have to do it, So my approach was, I still focus on kind of the medical kind of extracurriculars. I did like volunteering on like Saturday weekend, like Saturdays, shadowing experiences, like research, things like that. And then I joined a couple like engineering clubs as a kind of like a social outlet and leadership development. So there's definitely ways to kind of balance that. And I just really had to find a way to utilize the gaps that I have between classes to try to be more efficient, whether that's, try to get things done or try to like fine tune my studying techniques. And honestly, that, that will definitely pay off, like once you're in med school, those like skills that you've developed will definitely, benefit you. And honestly, it kind of helped me in a way that it kind of made me more, kind of create a kind of more like kind of like develop my grit and kind of my endurance, having like a challenging, like more of a challenging, like I wouldn't say like, pre-med is hard, but more things to juggle. And I felt that kind of benefit going through the first couple years of medical school too. And one thing that, one advice that I can kind of give is medical schools will kind of tend to like a continuity of things that you're involved with. So let's say if you find yourself like volunteering experience or like shadowing or whatever internship experience that you get, during the years that you have heavier courses, like whether you're doing like the core bio classes or the core BME classes, you can kind of ask for easier schedule, like working with your like coordinators or research like PIs. They kind of let them understand that you're kind of going through the harder classes, and hopefully that your hours can kind of be a little bit lighter for those times, but you're still kind of getting that hours in. It just goes to kind of show the medical school that you are kind of committed and motivated to get yourself exposed into the medical field. But yeah, there are definitely times where you just sometimes I had to like kind of really grind it out and lost some sleep, but I think at the end it'll definitely be worth it. Yeah, so I'll definitely I'll put my email in the chat, and I'll be happy to like kind of share more of my experience with you, kind of my undergrad and kind of the applying process. So yeah, thanks for the questions. Hope that kind of answers a little bit.
Thank you so much, Jerry. And just wanted to mention, Janelle wrote something in the chat referring to a previous question that just a note that some companies only cover certain types of degrees. So for example, certain companies may only cover an engineering graduate degree, not a management or business degree. So just make sure that you do your research and feel free to ask HR about any of these questions. Yeah, if there's any other questions in the chat, feel free to type it out, or if you'd like to unmute your mic as well. If not, we can also wrap up the panel, just depending on if there's any more questions.
I had a quick question. Sorry. So it's kind of general, but I'm kind of like on the same path with what Jerry was talking about. I have the same major, where I entered having an interest in both engineering and in like healthcare. And this could apply to all majors, but how did you guys really like narrow down and choose exactly what field that you wanted to go into? Or what do you recommend that we do for that?
I would say experience. Try to get more experience in different areas and really feel what you are passionate for, because choosing something just because it sounds cool but you don't really know what you're doing might lead you to the wrong position. So just really try to experience, and you will eventually find something that is like, oh my God, I can do this for the rest of my life, or at least for that time you have a path to follow.
The other thing is, if there's any mentorship programs, or like even just being in clubs, having not informal mentors, asking anyone around you or upperclassmen or even us on the panels more specifically, like what their internship experiences have been, or if they know other people in industry, or I guess if you're interested in healthcare in the medical field, just like getting more perspectives on what people are doing day to day can help you out. And when it comes to like the UCI level mentors, it could even be like, what classes should I take? Freshman year, I used to ask my mentors that. And then eventually it's like, what do you like about your internship? So I think networking in that sense is another way to get like different perspectives. Like just ask people like what they're working on, if it's outside of UCI, and how they like it.
Yeah, and one thing I would add is also kind of like get to know yourself a little bit more too. One advice that I was kind of given, or like that I heard, was, if you're kind of comfortable between, becoming a doctor or going in the engineering route, being a doctor, you're like dealing more with like patient interaction. You're like talking to like the patients, and what like this one like mentor like who like I was like talking to you, he was like, when you're a doctor, you see like maybe 12 to 15 patients a day, you like change their lives, for the better, like you really help them like face to face. But then like if you invent like or if you like work on a BME like medical device that gets like shipped out to like all over the world, let's say like a pacemaker or some sort of catheters for valves, or like valve kind of prosthetic valves, you get to like change like millions of lives. But those like changes you don't really see on the daily, and so it kind of like comes down to not only getting yourself more exposure to which kind of setting you like to work in, but what kind of work give you more satisfaction, and that kind of plays a role in kind of the experience that you get in undergrad too, like through different volunteering or internship or talking to people. So there's like a little bit of slight difference, but at the end of the day, I think either route you are like making it you really are making a difference, in people's lives. So it just kind of comes down to kind of knowing what you would prefer more, and that the only way to know that is kind of through experience to like try different things out.
I just want to add really quickly too. I was all throughout my undergrad at UCI, I was always like, should I do electrical engineering? Should I do computer engineering? Do I want to do software? Do I want to do hardware? Like, I was always trying to decide between the two, and I was always very unsure of like what I was going to end up doing for my career. And now that I started, I'm doing software engineering, so I'm mostly doing programming, but that's not something I could have really predicted. It's just sort of, how it worked out. Even when I was applying to jobs, I was applying to all sorts of things, just kind of, just doing different interviews and everything. And this is just the one that kind of worked out. And this past year, I've been working for like a year now. The whole year I've been like, is this what I want to do? Like, do I want to do more software? Do I want to do more hardware? Because now that I've started working, I'm realizing the opportunities are kind of endless. And the beginning of your career is just that, it's just the beginning. So, even now I'm realizing there's so many opportunities, and like, I'm doing software today, but tomorrow I could be working on hardware, and there's a lot of opportunities just within my own company. And then, with different companies, there's so many different companies out there too. So the opportunities are really endless. And once you have your engineering degree, that's, it'll take you like a long ways. So just wanted to say, like, it's okay if you don't know what you want to do right now. And even when you start working and you graduated, you still have time to figure that all out. It won't make sense right away, but you have time. So.
I have a last bit of advice to anybody. You're young, put in the time now, because when you get older, life happens. You might get a family, or health, or for whatever reason, you can't push as hard as you'd like to. So when you're young, try your hardest. You have the most potential for growth, and employers recognize that. So they love to push young people to newer roles, because they know that these people, once you train them, they can stay there longer than someone who's already like 45 years old at the tail end of their CS career. So work really hard.
Last call for any additional questions, please let me know. If not, I can go ahead and wrap up the panel. I'd just like to thank everyone who attended. I'd like to thank all the panelists. Thank you so much. I know you all have very busy schedules. So thank you so much. I feel like we all learned a lot from all your advice and all your thoughts. So thank you. Thank you for any of the audience members as well. Gonna go ahead and stop the recording.